Hello, everybody. Can we hear me? Let me make sure my mic is working. I'm going to open up the chat and let people thumbs up or yes or whatever you can to let me know that you can hear me. We are going to wait maybe just a couple more minutes because I think we had 7 people who were supposed to be joining. So I'm going to give them a couple more seconds to join in case they want to. And then we will get started. I hope everybody's having a great day so far. I know it's kind of early in the afternoon to tell if your evening's going well, but I hope everyone is having a good evening so far. And can everybody see the presentation? Okay, thank you guys. We're confirming. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. So I would just like to welcome you all to our webinar. This is our February webinar preparing for the OAT. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tara Pinnell. I'm the Student Services and Admissions Officer here at SCO. I'm one of the team members who answers your admissions questions and participates in the admissions process. Before we get started, I would just like to ask that we all use proper Zoom etiquette by keeping microphones muted and less speaking, limiting background noise, and respecting all of the webinar's attendees and facilitators. We will have time for questions toward the end of the webinar, but in the meantime, if you do have any questions or concerns that need immediate attention, please use your chat feature to communicate with us. Today, we'll start with the presentation covering the OAT and all that it entails, and we'll hear from one of our students, Reagan Cunningham, who I see just joined. We're going to ask him about his OAT experience, and this webinar is being recorded and will be free and available to view starting next week on our website. So let's go ahead and get started. I already said my name and who I am, but that's me. Okay, so what is the OAT? The OAT is basically your optometry entrance exam. All of the optometry schools in America, as well as 2 in Canada, accept the OAT. It's like an admissions exam that we use to test your capability and your understanding. Give me 1 second. So it is a standardized test sponsored by the Association of Schools and Colleges of Optometry. It is required of all students seeking admission. It provides standardized measurement for optometry school applicants. Like I said, it is accepted by all 25 optometry schools in the US as well as the 2 in Canada. And then it basically goes over the reasoning, critical thinking, reading comprehension, data analysis, and problem solving skills that you'll need in order to do well in optometry school. So that's a basic gist of the overview. So when should you take the OAT? We would generally say that there are several ways to go with this. So taking the OAT kind of depends on what courses you have taken already in school. We would like to see that you have taken maybe your physics, your reading comprehension classes, things of that nature, because they're going to be on the optometry or the OAT test. So it would be better for you to know all of those things beforehand so that you are a little more prepared when it comes to taking the OAT. We recommend that you would take the OAT about 3 months after starting your studying. It's kind of it's a really big task to take the OAT. There's a lot of information that you have to figure out before taking it. So, like I said, we recommend that you study for about 3 months before you take it. Um, I would also recommend that you try to take it before applying for your optometry schools because it's really helpful for the course or for the schools that you're applying to know what your score is before they ask you to come and interview. We do also accept the GRE and the MCAT exams as well, but we accept those on a menial basis so that it's kind of more if you have already taken the MCAT or the GRE and maybe you have like a financial situation that keeps you from taking the OAT or your GPA specifically, if you have a very high GPA and you did well on a GRE or an MCAT, we will accept those two courses or those two exams, but we much prefer the OAT. I don't know how many schools will accept the MCAT and the GRE, but I do know that SCO specifically will accept them under certain terms and conditions. Um, so what resources are available? Let's see. Oh, this is the category. My bad. I'm starting all over the place. You guys will have to forgive me. This is my very first webinar, so I'm learning as I go. I apologize. So for the categories of the OAT exam, you have your survey of, well, there's two optional portions of the exam as well before I start there. You have a 15-minute optional tutorial in the beginning, and you also have a 15-minute optional post-test survey. Like I said, they're optional, so you don't have to take them, but they are on it. And then you will begin with your survey of natural sciences, which is biology, general chemistry, and organic chemistry. This is a 90-minute breakdown. So you will need to keep in mind that when you have your scratch paper and things that you're using for maybe like your optics, or if you have any sort of mathematics that you have to figure out with these, you're going to want to kind of practice your OAT pre-test with the idea in mind that you will have 90 minutes for this breakdown, because it gets a little dicey sometimes when you have math questions that you're trying to break down on your scratch sheets. So we just want you to make sure that you're kind of doing a good job as far as your timing goes. So like I said, that's 90 minutes for biology, general chemistry, and organic chemistry. And then your reading comprehension is 50 questions in 60 minutes. That one is a pretty easy one to figure out. And then you have an optional break. So your optional break is 30 minutes, and I would suggest that you take the optional break because you are going to go into physics right after that. And physics is notoriously difficult. We have students who make almost a 400 on their OAT, and it's always physics that becomes the point of contention for them. Maybe they got a 390 or a 380 on physics, but physics is usually our lowest scoring area when we see students who are coming through after taking the OAT. So that one is one that I would suggest to maybe pay a little more attention and time on. And then you'll go into quantitative reasoning, which is also 40 questions in 45 minutes. Again, it is very difficult to figure out sometimes your timing when it comes to the OAT. So when you're practicing, I'll say it a million times, just make sure you're trying to time yourself the way that you would when you actually go to take the OAT. So the quantitative reasoning section is going to be mathematics and proficiency in problem solving, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and word problems. So like I said, 40 questions in 45 minutes with that type of math can be a little difficult. So just make sure you're timing yourselves. And then you'll have that optional post-test survey. So you don't have to take it. Of course, I'm sure you're all going to be so tired after taking a 5-hour exam. But it is 230 questions in total. So, what it means to be competitive. Um, these numbers range, as you can see, through the years. In the beginning, it was kind of leaning towards the 320 area, and now it's going upwards of 330 and sometimes even 340. If you want to check into like year 2021, it was leaning towards the 340 area. Now it's trending downward a little bit more to the 330s. But the test is graded on a 200 to 400 point scale, one grade for each section, total science grade, and the academic average. SCO tries to stay holistic when making admissions decisions, and students are usually assessed on their whole application, not just one test score, the whole test score. But a 320 plus is considered competitive. Um, we do have a lot of students coming through who have 320, 330, 340, 350. We even have some who have a perfect score of 400, but 320 is generally considered competitive. 300 to 310 is considered the low end of the average, but below 300, we're going to recommend a retake for you. Um, that's not to say that you won't do well in the next term. We have a lot of students who they just didn't really know what to expect in the beginning. So the first take was a little bit of a misfire, and we're okay with that. We understand. Sometimes it just takes the first try to get your foot in the door. Um, use the averages of the previous years as a guide for where your OAT scores need to fall. They're becoming increasingly more competitive. But that doesn't mean that the trend won't change a little. Um, again, when should you take the OAT? So it really depends on when you want to apply to optometry school. Most students take the OAT the summer after their junior year. This allows them to have more time to study. And like I said before, we really want to give yourself 3 months to study at least. Have you finished your relevant prerequisite courses? Like I was talking about before as well, we recommend taking at least the introductory levels of the courses that are going to be tested on the exam prior to taking the OAT because it's going to help you with your comprehension and understanding of the questions. When will you have time to study? Really just be honest with yourself and your schedule. Studying is very intensive and it requires a lot of time and energy. So attempting to juggle too much can sometimes cause more harm than good. Um, the application cycle is going to open for us sometime around July 1st because our current cycle has not closed. We don't have the exact date from OptumCast yet, but we assume it'll be sometime at the very end of June and very early July. So July 1st is just a safe bet. And the application cycle closes the following March 1st. So we stop taking applications that March. Generally, we get the most applications toward the beginning of July, and that's about the best time that we would suggest to apply because we like to get as many people in the beginning as we can. It's also when more scholarships and contract seats are available. So the earlier you take the OAT, the better for you. We are also on a rolling admission, so your personal application deadline should be June 30th, not March 1st. Applying to take the OAT. This is a link that you can go to apply. You do have to request a PIN first, and the PIN will be used to help you identify throughout the OAT process. You'll be required to read the OAT guide before applying, which lists the topics in each section, section, and it'll go into more of the administrative features. You can make accommodation requests. It applies to individuals with documented disabilities or medical and mental conditions. You can download, complete, and submit accommodations requests before scheduling your exam. And then to register, it's going to cost you $520, and the fee to reschedule is $40 to $150, just depending on the testing center. The Prometric Test Center is, it just depends where you are, I guess. After your application fee and fees are processed, you'll receive instructions on how to contact your Prometric Center. That's a tongue twister. And arrange a date, time, and location for your test. So to try and schedule your test, you will need to try to schedule your test 60 to 90 days in advance. If you want to come in June, I would recommend that you register in March. There are tests held throughout the year, so you can take it generally whenever, but like I said earlier, we really like to recommend that you take it as early as possible so we can get you in for an interview. And the earlier you interview, the better your chances are for scholarships and contract seats, like I was talking about earlier. There are fee waivers available on a first come, first served basis beginning in January. Candidates who qualify for a fee waiver must demonstrate financial hardship, prove this is their first time taking the OAT, be a US citizen or resident alien, receive financial aid at the time of the educational institution, or submit a fee waiver financial information form and education institution financial aid fee waiver letter. Like I said, the tests are held throughout the year, so you can schedule to take it at any time. COVID-19 also had, wrong one, sorry, preparing for the OAT. Really, when you are preparing yourself, we don't want you to regurgitate. We want you to remember and retain the information instead of cramming, because a lot of this stuff is a building block for your optometry experience. Like I've said a million times, give yourself at least 3 months to study, because an A in the course that you take, maybe if you took physics and you got an A, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a perfect score on the OAT subject test. We have a lot of students who make the mistake of kind of letting one of their areas, one of the subject areas, go to the wayside when they study, just because they feel like they're either in the course or they took the course recently and they did well, and so they don't have to study as hard for it. But that is 9 times out of 10 a mistake, because they always end up getting a less than they thought they were going to on that score. Sometimes people are really good at it, but it's just better for you to prepare yourself all in all, rather than trying to cram and deciding that if you're cramming, you may want to let physics go to the wayside because you just had a physics course and you think that you can do well on it. We would like you to do well on everything all at once, instead of having to pay another $520 to retake just because we didn't focus on one area. Create and maintain a habit of review. It's never too early to prepare. You need to figure out how you study best. Everyone has different study habits and things that work for them. Create study groups in your pre-optometry clubs. Your pre-optometry clubs are going to be a really great resource, because you're all leaning on each other and you're all going through a lot of the same prerequisites. And so you all understand your course material a little better. So leaning on your pre-optometry clubs is a good way to study for sure, if you have one. If you don't have one, there are also resources available online if you can find them. We have a few resources here at the bottom. Definitely review notes from relevant courses as well. So at the bottom, you can see if you want to screenshot or maybe write these down. We have a few study guides and resources available. Kaplan Review, OAT, Destroyer, Chad's videos, practice tests via the OAT webpage, other students or professors, and sometimes pre-health advisors as well, will always be good resources for you. Okay, on the day of, so we really would like for you to report at least 30 minutes early when it comes to the exam. Bring 2 forms of identification. you need maybe like your driver's license, your passport, your social security card, a credit card, debit card, library card, anything that can be used as a form of identification for you. Ensure that your name on your OAT application matches the name on your IDs exactly. That is very important. Your biometric data may be collected and your temperature might be checked. That was really more towards COVID-19. It may not be now, but that's just to be on the safe side. You're going to want to store personal items in a locker, food, beverages, your phone, writing utensils, wallets, keys, jackets, anything like that will be in a locker. Note boards, markers, and a basic calculator may be provided to you. I would just check with your testing center to be sure. So after the test, unofficial scores will be available automatically. Official scores will be sent to schools within 3 to 4 weeks. Here at SCO, we actually accept unofficial scores via photo. If you want to send them in through email to us, we will accept. If you want to take a picture with your phone and email it to us, your official score that they give you the day of. And then we can put those in the system. And then that kind of helps us bypass that 3 to 4 weeks that it takes for the scores to be sent to schools. It's also a 60-day waiting period in between attempts. So if you decide that you want to retake the OAT, just know that you have to wait 60 days before you are allowed to take it again. They That really matters when you're trying to apply for OAT or for optometry admission, because you might want to be in a cycle early in the cycle, like I was saying earlier, due to scholarships or contract seats, or just to make sure that, because there are some optometry schools who have much more limited seats than SCO does. So when taking the test, just know in advance that your 60-day waiting period, in case you didn't get a score that you like, is also kind of part of it, because if you wanted to retake the test, that kind of pushes your time frame back that you can apply and interview at schools. 75 to 85 of students take the OAT only one time. That we usually have, like I said, about 75 to 85% of our students take it just the one time. And then occasionally we will ask you to retake if we think that you did well enough, but not quite well enough to interview. But a lot of students do pretty well on their first try. So just remember to study and do all the things that we were outlining earlier, and you'll do well. Scores older than 2 years will not be accepted. So do make sure that you are current and up to date with your OAT. If you haven't taken it within 2 years, we will need you to retake it. We want to make sure that your skills are still up to par today. So that is after the test. And I am going to turn it over to Reagan. He did very well in the OAT, so we asked him if he would mind giving everyone some pointers and maybe go over some of the things that he learned about taking the OAT. And I do have a couple of questions for you, Reagan. So if you'll give me just a second, let me pull up my list for you and I'll go ahead and ask. But if you want to, you can turn your mic on and you can introduce yourself and tell everyone maybe where you're from, where your undergrad was, and maybe a fun fact.
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. You're good.
Perfect. My name is Reagan Cunningham. I'm a student ambassador in the class of 2029 here at SCO. I'm from Sanford, Florida. It's pretty close to Orlando, probably about 30 minutes away. And I went to the University of Central Florida in Orlando as well. I guess a fun fact, I played in a band in undergrad, and we got to play a lot of shows around Florida, so that was really fun.
I didn't even know that, Reagan. It's really cool. Okay,
Yeah, Memphis is a
so
good
my
city for music.
yeah, definitely. So our first OAT question is, what resources were the most helpful for you when preparing to take the OAT?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a big fan of OAT Booster. That was definitely my favorite. I would say that had a big impact on my ability to learn all the material and take practice scores, and I could see my scores increase with every practice I was taking. Sometimes if I was struggling with a specific subject, I like to use Chad's Prep's free videos on YouTube for I think the physics specifically, if I can remember. And then another channel I really liked to use was the organic chemistry tutor. And then also included in the OAT booster was a physics formula sheet. And I found that super helpful to kind of consolidate all the formulas that I needed to memorize. Unfortunately, you don't have access to a formula sheet on the exam. So, as arduous as it is, you have to kind of sit there and just write them out until you can memorize them. But yeah, I would say those were probably the most helpful things for me.
Awesome, thank you. I feel
Mhm.
like writing the formulas would be the bane of my existence.
Oh, yeah, just over and over.
How long did you study for the OAT?
Yeah, so going back to OAT Booster, I believe they have an 8, 10, and 12 week plan. I was pretty fortunate. I was able to live with my parents the summer before optometry school when I was studying for and taking the OAT, and or sorry, this the summer before my senior year. So I was able to put a lot of time into studying, and I did the 10-week plan, and I followed it almost exactly. I would estimate it probably took me about 25 to 30 hours a week of studying, and which sounds like a lot, but if you think of the scholarship potential that comes with that, that was kind of my justification for it. I think in the end, I probably made $20 or $30 an hour studying just from the amount of scholarships that I got. I would say the only kind of change I made to the plan is I altered it to put more tests at the end of the program. That way I could kind of get through all the material and then take practice exams and go back and review whatever I was struggling in, which was definitely physics, as you mentioned earlier.
hmm That seems to be the one that everyone really has trouble with, which I can understand for sure. Um,
Yeah.
Putting a dollar amount to the amount of time that you study is such a good way to look at it as
Yeah,
well.
that was very motivational.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Was there anything about the OAT that you felt caught off guard by, like maybe the timing, the questions, the breaks, anything like that?
Um, so yeah, the break, I was definitely not aware that we could just kind of do whatever we want. I mean, you could go on your phone, review whatever you really wanted. So I would highly recommend taking advantage of that, probably getting some food in as well, and just allowing your mind to recharge before you head back in. The reading section, I really expected it to kind of be evenly split in terms of the lengths of the passages, but one passage was definitely significantly longer than the first one or the other ones. So that was something maybe prepare for time wise. And then the quantitative reasoning was also something I did really well on in the practice sections and was a little more challenging on the real thing. So maybe put a little extra time into that than I actually did, considering what I got. But other than that, if you go through all those OAT practice exams on the booster, I believe you get 10. It really just feels like another practice day for the most part.
Nice. Okay. Is there anything that you wish that you knew or would have done before taking the OAT?
As funny as it sounds, I probably would have eaten a better breakfast. I would argue it's very important to have a full stomach and a well-charged brain on the exam, despite maybe some of the nerves that you're going to feel the morning of the exam.
Definitely. I feel like a good full stomach is about as good as it can get for taking quizzes,
Oh yeah.
exams, really just doing anything in your day. Were there any study habits that you developed specifically for the OAT?
Yeah, I would say more so than I did in undergrad. The studying for the OAT really required me to sit down and really focus in on a topic or a range of topics or whatever was on my to-do list for that day for a much longer period of time than I was used to, and just kind of put the phone away, get the distractions out of there, and really just study. And it's really challenging at first. Those first couple of days are hard, maybe in the first week, but it gets easier as you go along in the schedule. And then even going back to the schedule, just even making a schedule in the first place and actually sticking to it was something that was definitely used much more studying for the OAT than I did for just my regular classes in undergrad. And I would argue that those skills are also super necessary for optometry school in order to have any sort of success once you actually get there. So I think those are very good things to practice while you're studying for the OAT.
Yes, definitely very, very good advice, Reagan. Does anybody have any questions for Reagan or myself? You can either type them or if you want to turn your mic on and ask them, that's fine as well. Um, but we are kind of letting it be an open air for you guys. I know that there's a lot that goes into the OAT, so you guys are welcome to ask questions of us. I'll give you guys a few minutes. And Reagan, I'm super grateful for your help as well.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
the OAT is definitely daunting for a lot of students. So
Absolutely.
knowing from somebody who has taken it before that you can ask questions is probably super, super helpful. So um, I'm not seeing any questions or seeing anybody turning their mic off. Okay, it looks like Lucas is typing. We'll give him a minute.
Mm. Mental math. Um, oh man, I'm trying to remember. I believe you got to use I'm trying to remember if physics. I believe we got to use a calculator for quantitative reasoning, but it was just a basic four function calculator. And then I think for physics, you were not allowed to use a calculator at all. I do remember some comments on the calculator being too slow. I don't remember that really being too big of a problem for me. I think um, that kind of delay was even built into the OAT booster practice exams, and I think it was even slower than the actual exam was. So as long as you can get the timing down with those practice exams, I think you should be just fine.
Okay.
Yeah, of
All
course.
right. So I don't think we have any other questions. Emily, any questions from you? Lucas, any other questions for Reagan or for me? All right. Well, Reagan, would you mind putting your email address in the meeting chat? That way they
Yeah,
can send you an email and ask questions if they think of anything after this.
absolutely.
Um, like Reagan said earlier, he is an ambassador. So if you have any questions about the OAT or really anything involving SCO and you want to reach out, you guys are more than welcome to do that. Um, thank you again, Reagan, for being here. It has been a pleasure and it's been very helpful.
Glad.
Um, so any other, I guess, last second advice you can think of that anybody needs to know?
I would say just relax. It's gonna be okay. It's definitely a daunting process for sure, but it's nothing that nobody can't do. Just be ready to work hard. That's all you gotta do.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of the webinar. So I know we've covered a lot of information tonight, and I hope that this webinar has been of assistance to you. Um, Avery Cunningham is the person who normally does our webinars, and so this is my very first one stepping into her shoes, and there's some pretty big shoes to fill. So I have definitely stumbled over my words and figured it all out, but hopefully that's given me a little bit of practice for the next webinar. So we look forward to seeing you in March for our next webinar covering living and learning in Memphis. If you'd like to go ahead and register for that webinar, the link is live and available on our website right now. If you haven't done so already, I invite you to request more information by signing up for our inquiry form. You'll receive a personal advisor and a brochure with information relevant to your goals and experiences. Thank you again, Reagan, for sharing your
Of
time and
course.
insight. It was really, really helpful.
Appreciate
And
it.
we hope to see you all next month. But in the meantime, we wish everyone a happy Lunar New Year, happy Mardi Gras, happy Ramadan if you celebrate. And we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. It was good. I'm so